that, you know, they actually, how dare you do this? So he sends, and this is 1600s, okay? 1599, December of 1599. And so he sends to attack this town of Acoma. They had been there before, and Coronado had been visited before. But they resisted this attempt to come back in and exploit the population of New Mexico. The army went in there and had a fight with them. Indians throwing boulders, and actually they came in. It was really interesting because I walked that whole area on top. It was just fascinating to be there. This is a view from the top down up there to see what it is. Actually, they came up to this back end, attacked the town. After it was over with, they killed just about all the Indians. The Spanish did. They only took a couple of days. The survivors, which were some of the men and the women, were taken. The men were taken and were being punished. Any man that was under 25 years had his foot cut off. You know. And the visitors from their tribes, so they could go back to their tribe and tell them what would happen if there was an uprising, their hand would cut off. And the women, all the women, were taken as slaves back into Mexico. And some of them went to the convent, were put in a convent the rest of their life. They never saw them. So all these years, they lived with this thing, they saw their elders without a foot. They never forgot it. And to when I was there, and the guy knows, I didn't want to tell him I was in Hinojosa because he might. It was the atrocities that happened. Now, Oñate later on was tried for atrocities. Now, keep in mind the priest approved of this. The six captains, and one of them, Alonso Núñez Hinojosa, was one of the captains. They were all called in for trial. When Oñate went to trial, the six captains didn't have any money. They'd been up there for 10 years, and there was no gold, no silver, so they were dry. They couldn't fight. They couldn't pay the fine or fight the trial. So they took off. And guess where they took off to? They took off. The deal was, you can only stay in this area. You can't come back in here. You can't go 150 miles to Mexico. You definitely can't go to Spain. So they ended up here in this area, hidden in the mountains in Saltillo. One of the men that they hit was Bartalmo. Bernabe de la Casas was that mule driver. Well, while he was there, one of the main captain, another man under Oñate killed the Navarro, the Sosa, which was married to a Navarro, which was the richest man there in Saltillo. And Bernabe, after he killed him, took care of her and asked that they return to Saltillo. And when they got to Saltillo, it turns out this mule driver was married to the richest man. So what happened? He gets all the property, but the father dies, and he becomes the main guy in the Saltillo area. And in the meantime, when Hinojosa and a lot of the other captains too, they went and hid in the mountains because all of a sudden you had this brotherhood of knights, the same guys looking for the Inquisition were looking for them to take them back to trial in Mexico. For three generations they hid in that area, and they could not show their face or anything like that. But they from Saltillo they went into, and this is Bernabe de la Casas and Doña Beatriz Navarro. The Sanchez Navarro family down the road became the largest holders. Back then, they used to have a latifundio. Have you heard of latifundio? Latifundio was a law by the Spanish government that you could not have more than 100 haciendas. Okay. Have 101. Navarro had all from north of Saltillo to Parras, all the way down to Sabinas. All those were his haciendas. You could not at that point. If you worked in that hacienda, you had to get permission to leave. And but you couldn't leave because you owed so much money, you couldn't pay it back, so you had to come back and stay during that time. Well, Bernabe was finding a lot of silver in the mountains, especially in the Sierra del Friale. I don't know if you know the Sierra del Friale is. Where Garcia, here's that Grutas de Garcia, you know the Grutas de Garcia? Okay, that's in that mountain range, okay? that mountain range, you know, was Pesquería Grande on the north, and it's between Saltillo and, well, south of Saltillo, but it's all about streams. Everybody's looking for a stream. Stream makes a river, water, and everybody can cultivate, and everybody's, you know, doing well. Well, Bernabe had 5 children. He gave them all his hacienda, and they were all in the valley of Magdalena, which is right next to Fraile. In 1626, Martín de Zavala, someone was talking about, a family member was knowing about it, but this is Zavala, that he was a wealthy man. Actually, he was in the Panuco area, came in and was going to spend his money to set up the government. He was the third governor of this area now, and he was going to set it up in Cerralbo, of all places, not Monterrey, Cerralbo. He went over there, that's where he found the Sosa still living there, and established his government there, rebuilt the area, and was going to rule El Reino, or the new kingdom of Leon. And so everybody had to answer to him. His lieutenant was a lieutenant by the name of Diego de Villarreal. And Diego Villarreal did the right thing. He married Bernabé de las Casas' daughter. And because of that, he was already, he had the haciendas there in that area, became one of the most powerful men next to Zavala and Bernabé. And this is again, the mountains you're looking from that side. This is an area of Minas. Actually, this is more the Minas area, which was called, you know, Desaparecido de Calles before Minas. Today is Minas, a little resort area outside of Monterrey. And this is a beautiful little hacienda on the outside. It's actually a little bit later period, but I love it because you're driving in the middle of nowhere, there's no roads and everything, you find this hacienda there, whoa. And, but it just, this is a valley too that Alonso Núñez Hinojosa was also hiding for those 3 generations because they were looking for it. Now notice, this is Martín Zavala. This is 1626. He does a survey. It says, who are the people that live in my area? 47 units, 47 families.
May I take a picture?
Sure. You know, there's 47 families living there in 1626. That's an all of Nuevo León. So maybe there's 4 to a family or more. Let's say some of these are single. There's 200 people, okay? All of Nuevo León, okay? And it goes all the way to Saltillo. So when we start talking about our ancestry, it gets real narrow when you get to that point. You know, it gets real broad when it gets to our point. So it gets simple too. And you see again, Rodriguez, Treviños, Castro, Morales, Aldaña, Ávila, Sánchez, De la Garza, Villafranca, Guerrero, Hernández, Lujano, De los Ríos, Durán, now Zambrano, Lerma. I highlight the ones that are not duplicated. González, Molina, Rangel, Martín, López, de Mendoza, de Charles, de Solis, and de Sosa.
What are the highlights?
I didn't repeat them.
Okay.
They're shown twice. So that's how many different family names are there, which is an assortment. And again, a lot of these are Sephardic Jews, you know, which are the practicing Jews of that time. Now, the vecinos, which were outside, like the Capitan Bernabé, and you have these, you have Treviño, Campuno, de Benavides, you know, De la Garza again, González, Rodriguez, Olivares, Carrasco. So you have these in the general. Now in Monterrey is, you know, a populated area. The haciendas around there are close enough that if there was an alarm goes off, that you could run and go help, because they were all, Monterrey was being attacked for the next 100 years, okay? Even though it was populated, they would run in there, and there was one particular that could ride a horse, that how he got to ride a horse, but he couldn't, and he would really do a lot of damage to the people living there. I mentioned.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Did you run across any data that stated which particular tribe of the Jewish group they were from?
It's a factory.
Well, it's a
Oh,
part,
Sephardic, yeah.
but what I'm getting at is the lost tribe is the Gad, not God, it's G-A-D. That's the Gad tribe. They have certain towns in Spain, and those are the ones that the Queen went after. And my theory is the Jews that ended up here are from the lost tribe of Gad, G-A-D, and I was wondering if you had run across any declarations that they were from the Gad tribe.
You know, my wife's a Names,
Uh-huh.
and that's Jewish, you know,
Yes, yes.
son of Dan. Keep in mind that what happens here is real, you know, you heard of Johnson, son of John?
Yes.
The Sinovich, which means son of the Sinov, and go on. Well, in Spanish, you have the Rodriguez, son of Rodriguez, Lopez, son of Lopes, you know, all those have at the end. I went to school in Louisiana. It would freak me out when I went to find a Rodrigo over there without the EZ, or a Not, or, you know, or Lopes, all these, because they didn't have that, they didn't have that sign off at the end of the name. So I thought that was important.
Wow.
This map's another map showing, the route before, that was showing from, when we come here to Zacatecas, this one goes to Charcas, and then Charcas cuts across through the Rio Blanco and goes into the United area in Monterrey. This is a very hard trail. It's almost impossible to cross over here. The only reason you can cross here at the United is you've got that mountain crossing. I don't know if y'all did cross that. It's well, y'all, how many of y'all been to Mexico? In Monterrey, let's go. So you've been to these areas. It's important when you're talking about, I need to feel y'all because I'm talking to you in these areas. I want to make sure that I'm not losing you where I'm at. This is Rio Blanco, okay? This is that area that crosses there. Matter of fact, you know, the irony here is that that's where my grandmother's from, but they have no connection. The only thing is, like, because of that, I get the feeling they're very much in the indigenous tribes over there, which were Chichimecas. Or everybody was, the Chichimecas were the most savage tribe in that area. And, but they could not handle it. It was impossible. Now, going back to your question about Sephardic and the traditions of the Jewish people, like the cabrito and the draining of blood, you know, those kinds of things are very much things that are still done today. I know that my grandparents did that, and I didn't know why they were doing it, you know. I guess it was, we love cabrito, you know, and we love, you know, a lot of the other things, especially, you know, the bread, you know. One of the things that's, you know, going back to that other area I was talking about where the Villarreal set up, the Valle de Magallanes, the Pesqueria Chica comes into that area. Pesqueria Grande is over here where Garcia is, and it runs from the mountains to the east, okay? Because of spring doing that. Well, this one comes in the other way, comes in from the west. Now, in 1656, Alonso Trevino was given a grant or given permission to cultivate New England. And that's where the first wheat was grown. So because of the first wheat, the Jewish population were able to come back and do your pita and do your bread. And so it starts something that we have today. It's very much of a traditional culture based on that. You know, at that point, you went south, it was all corn tortillas. But at this point, because of the wheat that's being grown in the northern area, that's we started to get more of this of the wheat, and then the practice went on towards what we have. Now, going to the Rio Blanco, I found this document came out of Monterrey, and it was in the archives. And what the document says is from the King of Spain. What this is a request from Diego Hinojosa Montaño, which is the grandson of Alonso Núñez Hinojosa. He's still in hiding, okay? He's still hiding, but he throws at the idea, says, you know what? I need to get my brand for my ganado grande and my ganado chico. Ganado grande is your cattle, ganado chico is your goats and sheep. And as a matter of fact, you can see the brand right there. That's the brand that he's requesting to be filed. I think he gets busted because of this, okay? But on there he says, I'm in the valley of the Magdalena, which is that area over there. So I know now in 1670, he's living there. So bingo, I couldn't find it, so I don't know where he's at because he doesn't have any record. He's not even in any of the census because he's hiding. And so next thing I know, this is 1670, next thing I know, he's in Rio Blanco. You know, Rio Blanco, you know where Chorrito is? Okay, that's Rio Blanco. It's south of Santiago or Huajuco, you know, the Cola de Caballo, okay? It's back in that area. So he's going all the way over there because he's married to a Trevino Cantu. That's pretty good, you're married to a Trevino Cantu. You know, here's a guy who's hiding, and he married some of the wealthy women in the area, so he's figured it out. You know, he's got a lot of position. So he goes from this area right here, and he goes all the way back down to San Antonio de Llanes, which is that Chorritos area. Of course, Victoria's over here, you know, Matehuala's over here, Monterrey's right up here, Linares is right here. So he's way below there, Indian country, Chichen Vegas. He's a lieutenant, evidently he's under a main person, and they're there because his wife's uncle is a priest. Three brothers, Cantus come into the picture. You Cantus here? That's where they really come in. They come in, there's three brothers, and one of the brothers, like I said, he's the priest in that area. They come from Minas de Ramos, which is, if you cross from close to the mines in Zacatecas, go from there to Matehuala, you cross Matehuala, you end up here. So they end up being more Caireta, you know, population. So they had good holdings in Caireta, and the Cantus did. And so she was a Trevino, Cantu, and so evidently the uncle and the father pretty much request that he go there and sort of police the area. Alonso is, one day, the Indians get upset, the Chichimeca Indians get upset, and they assault his house. They kill Alonso. The wife, Maria Cantu, Hinojosa, is at the door, and she gets hit with an arrow and gets one through the neck. She survives. He has two sons, Miguel and Miguel. They leave, and they go and seek refuge, and they're very close to Diego Villarreal in Magdalena because evidently they were close to Diego. Diego and Manuel, two guys. Okay, she ends up going and settles in the Ciénaga de Flores, given that grant. There's nobody in Ciénaga de Flores. Given Ciénaga de Flores between Marín and Sabina, so you're familiar with that part of Mexico. Okay, so she settles that area, and eventually she ends up dying in Cerrado. So that family moves Cerrado, and just like a lot of families, like keep in mind, there's not a whole lot of families that are there. An important name comes in, and his name is Giovanni Bautista Chiapaprilla. I don't know if I said that right. Okay, that's Juan Bautista Chiapa. He shortened his name, and I'm not going to go to the story, you probably know his story, came from Italy, and arrived there in the mid 17th century, and was really an assistant to the governor. Miguel Zavala, he ended up being the governor till about 40 years, so he died in 1690. He was very well educated. He wrote a lot of the manuscripts that came out of it. A lot of the history I'm telling you is based on his writings. You know, that's how we know about how Alonso got killed and what happened, and that's how we know all the different things. Especially one of the important things that we know is that he was on that expedition to find the salt. Okay. Chapa and Alonso de Leon, which was another governor, later on governor in 1687 of Nuevo Leon, did 4 expeditions to find the French. Okay, the last one was when they they found the settlement there, but at that point, they found that they pretty much abandoned and saw and witnessed a lot of the atrocities of the Indians on the colony, which meant that they all killed. What's interesting on there, and I listed, a lot of the members of the expedition were people that came and settled in there. This is all the same people. You know, they're just, it's so, you have to draw within your own people, and they did this expedition. That if you go to Bullitt, Museum, they show the ship and they talk about Texas history. It's history of New York. It's history of. They not only did that, they also established. At that point, he really founded Moncloa, but they founded the old Spanish road that went all the way to Nacogdoches. That was in existence. That was your connection in the area. That's the only way you travel north until one day, because of that, because of the port here in Matamoros, the port of Brown, called Porterville, that we start getting an influx of people that start breaking away from the original people that we had.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Hermoso, if you go back to the picture, Alonso de Leon Hermoso, didn't Diego de Montemayor also have a son,
Yes.
Hermoso?
Well, yeah, they call, well, mozo means.
Small, junior.
Say,
Well,
junior.
yeah, junior. Junior, in other words, that, and instead of like, Alonso had, Alonso de Leon had a father that was is a historian. He was a historian. And so in order to distinguish him from his father, they had him with Hermoso. Montemayor also. Montemayor had a son, actually, and a lot of times they carried their mother's name. So they didn't have their, it was, there was Rodriguez. One of the guys that was Alonso was a Rodriguez, and he was his brother, okay? And it was a choice that you had,
A lot of people would.
and so that could throw you off of the family tree.
Women had rights.
Women had rights. Women women back then. They were the ones that determined what was going to happen in the household. And also, I'm getting close to the end, so the idea here is that the northernmost territory had to be guarded from Indians. All this was Indian territory. They could not get, you can see right here that we have Miel right here, Camargo. This 50 miles right here took 100 years. All of these dots show a presidio. Notice this area right here. Didn't mess with a lot of rural Indians in that area. And so, you had from Goliath or from Espiritu Santo, in San Antonio, San Sabas, all these dots represent a presidio. And there was a network was all the way to Arizona, and it went all the way to the I mentioned Nacogdoches in this area. Okay, so and a lot of the idea was you have presidio, and if you need his help on the presidio, you at least meet him halfway, so the distance were kept pretty much equal. But because of your presidio, there was 2,000 deaths a year because of Indian raids on this boundary right here. So it was really hard dealing with all the Lipans and later on the Comanches. They just didn't want to get Christianized. These are the roster in 1700. 1700. Okay, yeah, Vela, Reyes, Garcia, Salinas, Benavides. Some of these are still descendants of the earlier. And so you have 12 people in the presidio of Serrano and Seminary. This is before the and but you could tell that it was important that they were involved in a lot of these names I mentioned earlier. Because of the military physician, were allowed to come back and be the main or the colonizer or the founder of that community. One a real interesting story, and right after 1700, this is before Escandon came in. Okay, this is about 1720, 1730, and I'm showing the location of Miera Camargo for reference. There was a rancho called Malihueco, and I've been there. I didn't go there the last time I went. I had a bad experience, and I was going through the old dirt roads by the Alamo River to get to it. And soldiers jump out of the weeds and they come back with machine guns and they held against the thing. And they think that since I was doing those back roads, I think that was a drug run. They let me go. That wasn't the first time that's
That's a
happened.
big blessing.
But when I was going down the road. This is General Treviño. Monteaguda. Okay, that was what it's called. The Chiapas, and it happened for some reason. The Chiapas and Hinojosa got along. They went and put up a ranch here in Hacienda, and they lived together. A lot of the Chiapas and Hinojosas, got together, and that's why Florencio established, Chiapa established again with Manuel, even though Manuel was actually the older Hinojosa, the one of the Don, but still. But the Hinojosas and the Chiapa and everybody else, they would take the cattle, they bring it to this area. This was still Indian territory, but hey, it was perfect. Escandon, 30 years later, came back and said, okay, I want you all to colonize. And they told them, look, you guys, if you want to get in this area, you better apply for a grant, and that's the only, you're going to have to live over here. You can't be going back and forth to this ranch. And so Cerralbo's back over here. So their census is Cerralbo, but they moved a little bit north of this ranch to be able to get to the Rancho Malahueco. Well, anyway, at the rancho one day, they got attacked, and they chased the Indians all the way across the river after they got attacked. Well, they got ambushed. All these Hinojosas, and you notice that there's Villarreals and Lopez and Jan, and they're all brothers, nephews, family members, and there was no police. You're on your own. You were the tough guys. You had to take care of yourself. And every member here today is here because your ancestors were tough cookies. They could not have, the ones that are not here, that names are gone out of the roster, are the ones that just did not survive. Pioneers. I cannot stress how tough these people were.
Oh, man.
Now, 1732, this is your population now you've got a lot more colonies. Notice what happens, okay? This is what I find interesting. Cerralbo has 63, 63 in population. 73. That's the largest group of all. That's larger than Monterrey, and these are all around Monterrey, of course. Bustamante, Sabinas, Caireta, Pilon, which is Montemayor,
Montemorelos.
Montemorelos, I'm sorry. And so that's a lot, but notice what's next to it. No mestizos in Cerralbo. So there was a lot of practice of trying to keep mixing, and keep in mind, you're a don or a doña. So what as you're married, mixed in, boom, bingo, don comes off, doña comes off.
You lost your.
You lost. And so Monterrey, 54, 34 mestizos, mulattoes 25, but they had no Indians. They just. But then you had Bustamante, which was a Tlaxcaltecan town, set up brand new. It was Boca de Leon. It was on the road to Laredo. And Laredo was set up afterwards, so it has nothing to do with it. But Bustamante was actually a colony that was established from Saltillo. And notice what they have. They've got 31 Indians, and they have 46 Tlaxcaltecans. Strictly Indian Tlaxcaltecas. Now the mining town got set up right next to it, which was Villadalma. They had this was. Bustamante was 1680, Villadalma was 30 years later, 40 years later. And they had, Spanish came in, a little mestizo, a little mulatto, and some of the Indian. Now, these Indians eventually revolted. Even these Indians right here, they're on the census, but after a while, they were not part of the census because they just could not remain in an urban area, okay? But you find that going on, you know, Villa Santiago was some of the, it's outside of the Saltillo, Caireta has 65 Spanish and 30 mestizo. You can see how the breakdown was. At the end, a total, and this is a total of Nuevo León, was 489 people. That's it. 1732.
That was a population.
That was the population of Spanish, and 139 mestizo, 145 mulatto, and 149 Indians that were living in the community, not Indians out in the wild. Indians that were already into the society of that community. So, you know, and you add it up, 500, 640, 780, and 800, 920, not even 1,000 people lived in Nuevo León in 1732.
Wow.
Today, 1,200,000 live in Monterrey. So I'm keeping it real simple here because you know what? Then you talk about today, and you say, well, my family tree, and I said, no, I'm not even going to get into that. You know, it's too much to handle because there's so many different, you know. I did my family tree to Alonso, and I tell you what, I made the connection. My gosh, it was a trip, and only because it was well documented. All the church records are there. Okay, this is going, the trip now, of course, we talked about Puntiaga, Gouda, and Manuel go back in this area to the Camargo colonies, the different colonies that were Escandon, establishing the area, and later on the grants that were on both sides of the river. You know, it's interesting how Escandon comes in, Caballero.
That's a
I know so it's spelled.
That's his last name.
That's a B, not a B, sir.
That's a what?
That's a B, sir, not a B.
Well, but he has records, it has Caballero.
I was gonna say,
They
yeah.
order the Santiago, they say Santiago, but they put exactly the way it is. So that was when he died, you know, in 1790. And of course in Mier, you know, and again, I'm not going to get into the different cities, I'm just trying to reference, give you an idea with Central Chapa, which father-in-law was Manuel Hinojosa, okay? Inez Chapa was married to Manuel Hinojosa. These are just, and I didn't do the other colonies, this is just Mier. These are just the 19 families that came into Mier. And to show you the breakdown of these families, Salinas, Guerra, Longoria, De La Peña, Bosques, and a lot of you probably have this, I just threw that in just as reference. And there's a list of these for Camargo, for Revilla, for Laredo, for Dolores, for just Reynosa, and they're all, you know, there's even a Lugo. I was on Lugo. You know, I find that you can always, one of the things I like about genealogy is that there probably was no photographs, unless you had money, you could do somebody could do a painting of you. There was no record of what you looked like. And genealogy sometimes tells us, you know, because of the genes, we carry that. I mean, we might have a nose that someone had, or you know, we had a color eye, or something that had a reference to the. There could be someone that lived 300 years ago that talked just like you, looked like you, and had your safety. And that's what genealogy does. And so I always think it's important to come back in and make that connection. What I've taken more of it at the anthropology side of this, which is how they lived, what they did, where were they at, what were they thinking, you know, try to relive their path, you know, how they came back in, who they were. And to me, that's been real important. I've done this by hands-on on this. And not necessarily as much as trying to connect names. I think it's important to come back and make the connection more in the genes. So right now we're doing what's really interesting. I mentioned earlier in San Jacinto battle, we were involved in the excavations there. Found a lot of create a lot of history of that battle. But one of the things that we ran across, there wasn't something on site. There was 500 Mexican soldiers killed there. It happened that James Audubon was there a year later and picked up a couple of skulls that were on the ground. The bodies were left to rot on the battlefield, okay? And he took them with him and gave them to a friend of his that collected skulls from all over the world. And he traded it for some birds specimens. So Audubon won birds, secured the skulls, it's changed. Well, all these skulls from all over the world ended up in a box in a warehouse, and they were inventoried, and we found that said Mexican soldier killed San Jacinto, brought in the skulls. We did the forensics on it, and after we did the forensics, we made a model that found out how they were killed, you know. So since then, a friend of mine, Amanda Danny, has taken that model, has put the face on it, and then I've come back in and I've drawn the face of how it was in the body. We've been hired by St. Eustace University to do the studies of these different skulls that we have to find out from the DNA where they were from. The DNA tells what part of Mexico they were from. In one case, one of them was from Spain. So now we're able to recreate these faces. And to me, it's amazing that there's no photographs in, but we're able to do that. I wish we could do that to these kinds of names. A lot of the population of the residents of the colonies of Escandon, of course, went on to the north side. And as you know, in the 50s, Falcon Dam was created, and they went underwater, just like Revilla and
Who settled on that Revilla? My name's Cañamal, and he was settled there, Cañamal.
You were settled there?
Yeah, Cañamal.
You know, they you know, a lot of the regions that came in, one of the things that, because of the names I noticed, that a lot of the, like the Cartus, they came in from Caireta to establish, you know, the Reynosa area. The Hinojosas came from the Cerrado area. The Sanchez came in from the Sanchez Navarro family, but they came in from a Sardina, south side of Monclova. They came that route. The population from Revilla, you know, really came more from outside of the Cerrado, back in the Salinas area. They moved this area. So you had different groups. They weren't, very few of them, remember there's 20 colonies that were established in Escandon. And they were all, the Tampico area, you know, where the Padilla and those areas were part of this stretch all the way to the river. And so the ones that we have, they probably came up from the other areas, Querétaro, but the colonies here, they came from areas of the Reino de León. They didn't come from the interior of Mexico, they were already here. And they were given the opportunity to come back in and put a name on the land that they were already really living on. And so that was the choice that they were given. And they were done in the different grants, of course, you know, the 62 issuance and 87, and even all the way to the land grants here on the Baís, and then which were after the independence of Mexico, of Spain. But what also I want to point out, and I want to finish up with this, is that on the north side, a lot of little ranches, there was nothing between Eagle Pass and really Mier, that Zapata area. You're on your own. So you had to deal with the Indians, and you build your houses to defend yourself from the Indians. That's why all these buildings, and then the family names were pretty much put into the villages. Ramirez, Ramirez, you know, Lopeño, and they were all really fortified, you know, with gun forts and everything else for the Indians back into that part of the century. Again, you know, part of it had a lot to do with the survival of that area, and I just want to make it, you know, understood that this was that part coming over abandoned. They were flooded by it. Unfortunately, they were underwater now in the Falcon Lake, and so we don't have any kind of reference to it. This was an old study done by in the 50s, and the only reason we have these drawings that were available to us. As I'm a preservationist and architect, I love preservation this way. That's why I also relate to where they live, part of it. You live, how you dress, what you eat, and where you came from. This was the population of Rio Grande Villas, and you can see the dates here. You look at 1770, which I showed you earlier, 1732, 1770, Reynosa is already 440 people. Camargo was quite large, was your first one, 1,000. Mier, 655. Didn't really grow a whole lot. And a lot of it had to do because they established themselves a little bit differently. There was no, they have no aid. They did everything on their own. Revilla 230, 208, Laredo. Notice that 24 years later, 1240 to 119, Camargo grew a little bit, not that much more. Mier a little bit. Revilla grew a lot, at that point in 1794. And Laredo, also stayed pretty small. Now, between the population was 2,333 of all in 1780. It doubled in size in 25 years. But because of Matamoros was coming into play at the beginning of the century, 10,000 people, bingo. It went up to 24. Actually, this would have been 3 times more in 30 years. So you can see how the population, it grew to a point, but still, when you talk about 25,000 people on, let's say there was really nobody on the north side except the Laredo, and they had a choice to do both sides. The reason you left your settlements on the south side is because the Indians were bad. The river at least gave you, and you put all your ranches on the north side because you had all the cattle to feed. So that was your main reason why everything remained there until the treaty, even Treaty of Guadalupe, when the river was set your boundary, then all of a sudden Mexico was found on that side. But the buffer had always been from the Nueces River to the Rio Grande River. And all your cattle country, when you talk about the cattle that was being, going to the north, the cattle was already in the plains where we're at right now in north of us. Nueces River. All the trails that went into Kansas were coming from this area. And originally, even we supplied the cattle during the American independence in 1776 from here. They were taken, and because that's what we had. It wasn't until we got irrigation that things changed in this area. Well, with that, I pretty much conclude my talk. I stopped with, like I said, I was going to the roots of it, and really not talking a whole lot about. I want to talk about that and do that maybe another time. But remember the forgotten.
Great presentation. My God.
Well, you got a memory.
Any questions?
Not one note.
Talk about Laredo. My daughter died and my husband was here from Laredo. Just, I didn't expect you to be here. Thank you, Mia. Thank you for coming. Any questions?
You have any de la Garza in your line?
I'm sorry, yes.
Huh?
De la Garza is real strong in my life. You look like a De la Garza, but you talk about features. There's De la Garza's in Mission. I grew up in Mission. I had high school there.
The de la Garza that I have prayed was quite prominent. But I was able to interview a cousin of my father in Matamoros. And she was giving stories about her grandmother. And do you know Nacho Garza from Brownsville?
How tall is he? I'm sorry?
How tall is he?
He's a tall man. He's out with his helmet.
The thing that my father's cousin told me was that when this De La Garza came from the ranch and went into Matamoros, he was referred to as Don Lorenzon.
Don Lorenzon. Eso de Don Chacón.
De la Garza, Don Blas, María de la Garza, Juan Treviño.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about 1991.
Sí.
Very common person.
Well, the lagarto that I'm referring to was Camaro, late 70s, 77.
I think I did it. I'm gonna put it on the Facebook page. There's society. Yeah.
Because see, these things on TV, on the internet, fake. When you make anything up, I think this guy got these.
Roster, it describes people that are.
See, that's what my wife's a Garza, and that's the coat of arms that she makes.
Legit?
Yeah, that's legit.
Eyes, the hair, the height, tells you all about it.
This is
Because it started,
show that too.
without mentioning the different names, there are a lot of names I showed you.
Gonzalez and Chapas, and yeah, that's pretty neat.
With nothing, they even said, when it was all over, they hid it inside a cubicle.
She'll put
One good day, it was like, it was a northernmost territory, and he wanted to get away from Mexico.
send me an email.
Chop up, all chop. And they're in Caracas, they're all chop.
Do you have any chapas?
Yes. And that, there were Hinojosa, the chapas, they were like this, in seven, actually, is, you know, chapas son in the last, he had three sons. I'm not talking about the chapas. He had, it was Florencio. And Florencio's mother was Nez. So they were coming from the rancho there but they're all considered, if you look at the birth certificate.
Yeah, it's two. Go ahead. I'm done. I'm gonna turn this off.